The Survivor Specialists are back, and today we have our episode 2 predictions and prop bet game. I am joined by Clyde from Survivor Analytics. The two of us are going to do a shorter podcast than we had over the summer. Clyde made sure to remind me of our 2.5 hour to 2 hour, 45-minute marathon we did on player rankings. Of all 24 of these players, or 22, because we didn't know Rizzo and Savannah at that point. But this is the prop bet game again. If you joined it after week 1, we have 10 questions. We answer all 10 questions, Real TV Fantasy. The link is in the description here. We have 10 new questions. One is essentially a freebie, but we're not going to get to that until the end. So, we're going to see who our most dedicated fans are to let them reward themselves. Russell Muscle last week had a bunch of rules for himself. Clyde, you said beforehand you don't care about that. You're playing to win. So what's going on today?
100%. Thank you so much for having me on. I watched it last week. I had to do my homework beforehand, understand how each of you guys were thinking about this game. I appreciate that it's not just your simple fantasy game because, like you mentioned last week, some people are privy to spoilers. I've stayed away as much as possible in the lead up to the season. But like you said, I'm here to win. So I'm not going to be doing this based on what I want to happen in the episode. If production releases something in the lead up, then I'm going to look at it. I'm going to use it to my benefit to get me more points in this league. Because I think the winner gets a Funko Pop from Todd, right?
Yeah.
So I still have one. I have the room on my shelf behind me to fit it, and I'd love to have it on there. And the season's been great so far, too. So that's another bonus with it all.
That is another positive. Yeah. How many points did you get week 1?
I got 2 points.
That's what I
need
got
to go back and check to see which ones I got correct. The biggest surprise was missing on the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol, because I bet everybody picked Devins for that one based on the season preview.
And the fact, though, is Devins hasn't mentioned the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol yet. So
yes,
they put that in the preview. We don't know if that's going to happen this week. We don't know if that's going to happen somewhere down the line. Like, we really don't know when that's going to play in. But I don't think I chose Devins. I think I chose somebody else on his tribe. I never would have thought Genevieve was getting it. No way.
Oh,
Genevieve
same.
and Devins have nothing in common. They're not even on the same tribe.
Yeah. So I picked Devins for that one. I don't remember where I got my 2 points from, though. I also picked, I think Q is the first boot, which I know was a common first boot pick. Missed on that one as well.
I think the big one for everybody was who won't be talked to at the opening challenge. Pretty much Jeff only talked to 6 people. So if you had one of those other 18, you got it. So that was a big one for people. And then I'm trying to think what the other one was. I forget what the questions were. I mean, Ozzy was actually a pretty popular pick for most confessionals, which I was surprised at. He had a massive episode.
Really?
19. Yeah.
Man, that's great. He was not my pick for that one. I think I want to say either Jenna or Siri for most confessionals. I felt like they were either going to go to someone that's fringe Mount Rushmore of the franchise or someone that represents the history of the franchise. But Ozzy makes sense. Yeah.
Were you surprised how little Siri got?
I was surprised more so because her tribe went to tribal council. Like, I think if you're going into that tribal, and this kind of shows a little bit of my cards in terms of what I think for Siri long-term, I don't think she's winning this season after just one episode, because if she was going to win, I feel like the edit would have told the story of this is how Siri was able to finesse her way out of that situation and flip the vote onto Jenna. But it wasn't really portrayed that way. You instead saw these two battling sides with this like 5-person alliance operating the middle, and really that nerdy group of Christian Devins and Emily Flippin making the final decision. So this gave me some pause with Siri's winning chances.
Yeah, I had made a comment in our recap episode where I said that, I'm surprised this was like the first time in Siri's gaming history that she survived when she should have been the target without really doing anything on her own. And somebody commented and said, how could you say she didn't do anything? She really didn't, though. Like, I understand how you could, if you really peeled it back, if you're a huge Siri stan, you could find the good things that Siri did. There's no doubt. However, any casual who's watching this doesn't think Siri did anything to save herself. Yeah. And look at how they edit the show nowadays. If you're winning, you're going to get the credit, especially as the biggest name on this season. Like, Siri Fields is the biggest name on this season of Survivor. If she was going to be the one who was going to win and she had to overcome, they did it for Nick Wilson, right? They've done it for players in the past. They did it for Chris Doherty all the way back in season 9. Like, there's so many players who should go episode 1, find a way out, and you see the narrative about that. Siri got nothing of that in this episode.
And to make matters worse, and I hate that we're starting the podcast with like the Siri slander, but I just want to run with it a little bit. I feel like if Siri was going to win, a Siri path to a victory would involve rallying the other threats in the game and then going late into the game with them and picking off them at the optimal time. But we just lost Kyle too. I feel like Kyle could have served as one of Siri's main shields in the late game, and now he's not even available to her anymore.
Yeah. Kyle going is brutal for everybody. I mean,
for sure.
I know you're the man of hot takes over on TikTok. I know that's where you're at, and I watch a lot of your stuff. But I mean, I don't know where you stand on the alliance Kyle was building, but Genevieve, Colby, Stephanie, Q, Kyle. It's like that helps everybody from the new era. Everybody wanted Q and Genevieve back. I love Colby. The old school fans love Colby and Stephanie. That's the alliance. That's what we wanted. That was the dream come true. And now Kyle gets medevaced, and now all of a sudden those people only have 2 votes. And I'm just sitting here going, damn, this sucks.
Well, I don't think it's the worst case scenario because that opposing group of Aubrey, Angelina, and Rizzo is still entertaining on their own. Like, this isn't like the worst group to take control of that tribe. I'm a Rizzo fan, but when it comes to Kyle specifically, like, I thought this was devastating, mainly because I felt like he was chasing something greater than $1 million on this season. Like, if Kyle went deep into the game, and I think I gave you this idea for the podcast last time we recorded together, a Kyle win would have been insane for his legacy. In my mind, Kyle is either the best or the second best player of the new era. I won't hear an argument for him being outside the top 2. Mm-hmm. If he made it far here, he could enter that greatest of all time conversation. We could be looking at Kyle as like a modern legend of the franchise. And based on what he did in that early game, he was set up to at least survive, you know, those first 3-4 episodes before they eventually swapped. So I'm hoping that we get Kyle coming back at some point in the future. I would be shocked if he ends his Survivor career as a 2-time player. It's just a matter of when with him.
And Jeff loves him, right?
Oh, for good reason. Who doesn't love Kyle? Like, he's such a genuinely kind person. I wish they included the segment of him boosting up Colby in that challenge because I think it just shows so much of his character too.
And then he's fighting with Jeff about, I'll sign a waiver. I'm ready to stay. I'm ready to do all this.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of stuff didn't make the cut. We actually did do that Legacies episode too. That was one of the last, that's actually the last episode we did about season 50 was the Legacies one that you recommended. And I think I do give you a shout out there. So
thank you. There you go.
I'm you on now while you're already on the podcast. But yeah, I agree with you though. I think a lot of people, I think Kyle grew in a lot of people's minds here because 48's not popular. A lot of people didn't like 48. I think the consensus really from the online community is 48 is maybe the worst of the new era. And then you turn around and Kyle wins that season and people are like, he's boring. He didn't do a lot. I always say Kyle played such a subtly dominant game. It was insane. And he showed in this episode why he's so good. It's personality, it's social. And honestly, and I know you might disagree with this because I know you're not a big fan of either of these players, but it does remind me a little bit of Sandra and Michelle, where it's like, look, we just get along with you. So we're willing to take you along for the ride. But Kyle was in more control, which is what is crazy because Kyle has that personality where you say, I want to work with him. And then you turn around and you say, okay, and I'm also letting him kind of dictate where my game is going. That's impressive.
Yeah. And it's difficult because I'm the kind of guy that loves rankings when it comes to players. I have a full like top 50 players in the history of the show. And after the premiere, I told myself, I can't really move Kyle up or down because it's a 1 episode sample size. We didn't really get to see his actual game play out. But I had a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, you have to move Kyle up because he did it again. He built that stable majority just like he did on 48. He's proven that he has a repeatable play style. I also had people, like some people, a vocal minority saying you should move Kyle down because he's injury prone. And that one I can't get behind at all. Yeah, I do think there's an argument to say that like public opinion on Kyle should go up after Survivor 50, as crazy as that might sound.
I think 100%. And I think him getting medevaced, I mean, that's kind of what happened with Jonathan Penner. Jonathan Penner was popular after Cook Islands, but people didn't really think Penner was that good of a player. And then he comes back for fans versus favorites, talks through everything. And then when he gets injured, he's like, oh, what could have been? What could Jonathan Penner have been? We got to watch him again. And I feel like Kyle might be falling into that. I mean, I say it all the time. There are times where you can play a better game and finish significantly worse. Like I think Sierra Dawn Thomas is a great example of that back in Game Changers. I think even Michelle in Winners at War, like she has her finger on the pulse and is telling everybody what to do. And they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And it's like Michelle was right about so many things that were going on. I think you can build your legacy even if you lose a game, even if you sit at Final Tribal and lose. Like, I think you can build your legacy. But I think Kyle, absolutely. Now there's a question mark around him. And I know Blake and Will were not huge on Kyle coming back with how recent it was and everything like that. They've been messaging me a lot talking about how, man, Kyle actually was like really good. Like, I was ready for this. And I think people forget that sometimes you got to play your season. You got to play what's in front of you. You could try to be a little more dramatic. You can try to be a little bit more of a top. But if your season is allowing you to play conservatively and you're in control, you want to win $1 million. You want to be a TV star. Kyle wanted to win $1 million. Then he goes back and almost becomes a TV star. Kind of reminds me of JT coming from token cheens to heroes versus villains. And in heroes versus villains, he starts off, he takes control of the heroes tribe, ultimately makes a boneheaded move, although I don't give him a lot of crap for that because he didn't know Russell. And, JT is maybe a more entertaining player on the season where he plays and gets 10th.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think maybe a hot take with Kyle is that maybe the medevac will do more to like boost his legacy than it will to hurt it, because there's that feeling of the unknown. You can talk yourself into this idea that, if he wasn't pulled, he would have went all the way. But if you look at the board of the season, I don't know if Kyle was actually that like well set up to succeed on this cast. The fact that you had his two closest allies also there, it was only going to be a matter of time until the rest of the cast said, okay, we need to vote out one of these 48ers. And who's the person operating the middle between Joe and Camilla? It's Kyle. So if he stuck around, there's probably a good chance he gets booted, but that's not because of his own poor play, more so because of the composition of the cast.
Agreed.
So I've went back and forth on it. I'm going to keep him where I have him right now in my all-time analysis. But I hope he comes back in the future so we can really see what he can do with a different group of people.
Yeah. All right. Enough about Kyle. Let's look at some of these questions because we'll talk through everything as we go. The biggest shock to me in this first episode wasn't necessarily that Ozzy got the most confessionals. Because look, he went on a journey. He had exile. His tribe lost. He gets the Billie Eilish Boomerang Idol. He's defending Siri to try to keep Siri in the game. What was surprising to me is how many more confessionals he got than everybody else. He got 19. Nobody else got 10. That is
really
insane, right?
Okay.
So he got the most confessionals in episode number 1. Maybe that tribe goes to tribal again. We don't know. I think it's between them and purple. I think the blue tribe is just chilling until they do the swap next week.
Oh, for sure.
So I brought some of the questions back, even some that didn't hit in episode 1, because I said I just want to do them again. But the first one I have is who will have the most confessionals this week? Are you thinking it's going to be Ozzy again, or are you going a different route?
I'm going a different route. I'm going with someone that I think was towards the upper end in terms of total confessionals last week. And like you mentioned, my assessment here is not based on who I think is the most essential character to the storyline of the episode, because there's a lot of factors that go into it. Generally, I think it's a good idea to pick someone from the tribe that's about to go to tribal council because they're just destined to have more screen time. So this shows my cards a little bit. I think Vatu's going to lose immunity this week. I said that they were going to lose it last week and it didn't happen, but I'm sticking to my guns. So I'm going to go with Rizzo for most confessionals of the week. He got a lot in the premiere. And I think that he's representing like the super fans that are watching the show. And he's geeking out with everything that's happening around him on the island. When Jeff asked Coach, can we get a coachism or a Dragon Slayer saying, Rizzo leans over and he says, oh yeah, I want to hear this too. You get the moment between Rizzo and Colby. Like, he is set up to connect with the fans, to make us feel like he is my representative on the island. Or at least maybe that's how I feel. So when Batu goes to tribal council, I think Rizzo can be that consistent narrator, not only for the super fans, but also for the new fans, the people who just started watching in the new era, 48, 49, and he can kind of help with that transition for them as well. So I'm locking in Rizzo.
I like that. So actually in the first episode, he only had 2 confessionals, but he was so
only
present.
2?
But he was so present. I agree with you. I felt like he was so involved. Now he only had 2. I'm talking to the cameras, but he had the moment with Colby. He had the, when he's doing the fashion show or whatever. I also think what really helps Rizzo here, and I don't have him for this, but I have him for something else. If Vatu goes to tribal council, Angelina and Aubrey look like they're on one side. Colby, Stephanie, Q, Genevieve are on the other side. Because Colby and Q don't have votes, the way the edit would make this, if it truly is a 2 versus 5, Rizzo might not even know that Colby and Q don't have votes. but the edit is going to make it so that Rizzo is the deciding vote. So we as an
Yeah.
audience are watching it because he's the swing, he's in the middle. Now, realistically, if he doesn't know that those other people don't have votes, he doesn't know that he's the swing. So how could he possibly, you know, ever figure that out? But the edit is going to make it that way. So if that tribe goes, the story revolves around where is Rizzo going? Who's he siding with? That's a good pick. That's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah, I feel solid about it, but I might be biased too, just because I'm a big Rizzo fan in general. Like, I wouldn't mind having a full episode of Rizzo content. But who do you have for most confessionals?
So for me, I am split on whether it'll be Vatu or it'll be Sela. Like I said, I think Teal is good. I got the Teal buff right here. Right. I didn't mean to get the winning buff, but I have the winning buff.
Did you get that at an event or something, or how'd you end up with that?
So they're selling them now, but I got this at the Survivor Cafe here in Miami.
So
cool. Yeah. So I was able to get
that. Been your top pick? If you could pick any of the 3 tribes, was the Kala one your top?
So when I saw them all, this is the nicest one by far. Like in person, this one just pops the most to me. I think that and I don't really care. Like I have a couple buffs. I don't keep the buffs around. I don't wear the buffs around, whatever. I saw this buff and I was like, damn, the teal works. I like this buff a lot. It's not your typical orange or purple or whatever. Yeah. I like it. So I'm happy to have that one, even though I look at that tribe and I'm like, okay, like I love Coach, but aside from that, like my favorites are on purple. But how many purple buffs can we have?
Yeah. And to be fair, like I can't think of the last time we had a teal tribe.
I think it was San Juan del Sur.
Man, it's been that long. That was the merge tribe, or was that in the pre-merge?
It was the merge tribe, I believe, was teal. Now there could be one.
I can see Natalie wearing it in my head. I don't remember when she was wearing that.
Yeah, no, actually, no, it is the Huyopa. Yeah, it was the merge because Huyopa. Okay. Huyopa, there it is. Yeah. Now you guys know I can't say Huyopa. But anyway, yeah. So I have that. That was, I think, the last time. There might be another one, but I think that is, I don't know. This is the nicest one. So I think this tribe's going to kill everybody. I think they're just going to keep dominating. So who do I think is going to have the most confessionals? Most of my answers here are Vatu or Sela. For this one, I'm going to go Sela, which is going to be funny because then for my next one, I'm going to go Vatu, even though Vatu is purple, whatever.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Christian. I think Christian had a great first episode. He ended up with 7 confessionals, but his confessionals were so meaty. And I always talk about circumstantial confessionals versus like necessary confessionals. Circumstantial confessionals are what Ozzy had last week. Goes on the journey, goes to Exile Island, gets the boomerang idol. His tribe loses. His closest ally's in danger. Of course, he's going to get a lot of screen time. Christian, though, got a lot of confessionals, despite the fact that he wasn't even really shown as the one driving the vote. He was the one who said we should make this unanimous, but it felt like the story was really more about Savannah. And then on the other side, you had your Ozzy and your Siri. Christian was split in confessionals with Devins and Emily, but Christian really popped. And the story they told about Christian with his child and the way he's playing the game, and Christian just being a good narrator in general and knowing that's his role in the season, I'm going to go with Christian because I think Christian could get this in an hour-and-a-half episode, even if his tribe doesn't go. Whereas Vatu, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I think that's a great pick, though. And from production's point of view, they decide who gets the most confessionals for that particular episode. And I bet if you surveyed all the Survivor fans watching this season, the most popular characters are Ozzy, Siri, and Christian. I think Christian's like the most popular modern age person on this entire cast. So it makes sense from production's end to give him as much screen time as possible. And I really agree with what you said in terms of necessary versus circumstantial confessionals. Christian has a clear storyline on that Sela tribe. And if they do go to a tribal council, which I question right now, but if they do go, he's the one operating the middle of that nerdy players alliance. So he can kind of serve as a narrator no matter what happens moving forward. I think that's a really good pick. I questioned it at first when you said that you didn't think Sela was going to go to tribal, but it made more sense after the explanation.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a good feeling about Christian. I feel like out of all the players on this season, because another one I'm going to have coming up here is who will have 0 confessionals. Christian is just somebody, like you said, the fans love him. Production knows that. And who did production focus on in that first episode? It was the classics, man. Like it was the big time classic players. Genevieve, who is the new era fan favorite, but Q, Stephanie, Colby, heavily focused on. Coach, Ozzy, Mike White. These were the players that were being heavily focused on. You're not going to just dump Christian off to the side, whether his tribe wins or loses. He's going, because if they win, he's going to be important to the story that happens in a little bit. So I feel good about Christian for sure. And I think that he's, him or Devins. The biggest problem is that Devins is also there as a great narrator. And honestly, Savannah proved her worth in that first episode as a good narrator too. I mean, she had a lot of good content there, even though it was like Savannah, she just won 49. I just watched her. I don't need to hear from her again. And she had good content. She hung with the best of them there.
Yeah. I will say, like, Savannah's strategic position, I'm definitely worried about. I would say, like, if Sela goes this week, my pick would be Savannah gets voted out just because of her reputation as a former winner, the fact that she got the vote block and everyone knows that she has something, but they don't know exactly what she earned there. She could also be a solid pick for most confessionals if they go to tribal council. Savannah doing what she can, playing from the bottom and trying to survive in that situation.
Yeah, and I think with Savannah, when I did my power rankings with Mitch on Sunday, we both had Savannah as the lowest ranked person on that tribe. And you might be coming out of the first episode going, no, Savannah was doing okay. If they want to keep having these unanimous votes, Savannah has nobody who will back her. And then they know she has something that she's not telling them about because they've all played enough. Brutal.
And on top of it, she's proven that she doesn't have a lot of sway within that majority. She's one of the people like Joe saying, we got to get rid of Siri. She's hurting us in the challenge side of the game. So I think really the people who got their way in that vote were Devins and Christian. Emily, Joe, and Savannah all did not want that to happen, but they caved to their strategic interests.
It's true. All right. So speaking of the vote, who will cast the deciding vote this week? That means the vote that Jeff reads when he says blank person voted out. I'm going to go first on this one because this is where I have Rizzo. So I have RIZGOD. And if Vatu goes, now what's funny is I think later on it's who's going to get the first question at tribal, and I go actually to the Sela tribe. So I'm kind of hedging my bets. I mean,
you're covering your bases.
10 questions and the high score was 3 points. Maybe I made this too hard, or maybe it's just a little too random right now because there's 24 people. Now there's 22. So I'm kind of hedging my bets a little. So I'll go with Rizzo as the deciding vote. If that tribe goes to tribal, I think ultimately Angelina would be voted out. She is the person that I have in the bottom spot of my power rankings this week. I think she would be the boot. But if that tribe goes, because Colby doesn't have a vote and because Q doesn't have a vote, like I said, it's going to be set up that Rizzo is in the middle position. So I'm going to go at Rizzo here. If Sela goes, sucks to be me, but at least I could then still get a tribal council. The first question there, because I did pick the Sela tribe. So Rizzo, though, is what I'm going with here.
I think that makes sense, especially if it follows your theory that Rizzo's the one operating the middle and they're all waiting to see if he stabs Colby, his paternal figure, in the back. I have a similar idea. I'm sticking with the Vatu tribe here. I'm swinging for the fences. I have this theory that they're going to tribal, and I'm just going to build everything else up off of that theory. So I think if Vatu goes, you're going to have that majority alliance with the loss of Kyle and the lost votes. And I think they might look to flip on each other with that understanding. And when that moment happens and you have Genevieve saying, we don't have the numbers, and Stephanie's thinking the same thing, and Colby, I don't know where his head's at, but he's probably thinking something. I think this is where the vote ultimately flips onto Q. I know I picked Q as the boot last week, but I think he is just someone going into this season with such a massive target on his back because he's seen as such a chaotic person that when everything starts to crumble around that alliance and they say, we need to just cut our losses and get rid of one of our own, they'd be willing to let Q go. And who is the perfect person to have their deciding vote held up against Q? It has to be Aubrey. Given the history between Q and Aubrey on this show, with Q targeting Mariah on 46 because Mariah said that her favorite player was Aubrey. So I'm locking in Aubrey there, but I think the Rizzo theory makes a lot of sense because he would technically be the deciding vote.
I love that, though, that Aubrey would get that. I mean, hey, it was Joe Hunter last week who had the deciding vote. As random as that is.
Oh, well, wow. Okay.
It was a pile-on vote. It was a 7-1 vote out. So you could choose anybody there, but I guess they liked Joe's handwriting on Jenna's name the most. And it was Joe Hunter who had the, first person voted out of Survivor 50. Jenna, it was Joe's vote that was shown. So it could be random, but I do agree on that Batu tribe. It's kind of like back in All-Stars. Everybody always says the first tribe put together was Mogo Mogo. Right. It was one player from each of the seasons. And, you had a winner, you had whatever. It feels like all stars, right? It's Kathy Vavrick O'Brien, Lex, Hatch, Colby. Like it feels like it's the true all-stars tribe. That's kind of what this one feels like. It feels like this Vatu tribe was, look, we got Aubrey, a lot of fans, Genevieve, Jenna Lewis on the other tribe. Sorry, Colby, Stephanie LaGrossa, Q, Rizzo from the newest season. Like it just feels like this was the one that was built first.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of storylines on this tribe that there just aren't on other tribes.
And it's also the tribe I feel with the least like pre-established connections. Outside Colby and Stephanie, everyone else felt like free agents within this group.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right. So what are we up to next? So I gotta read the question perfectly. Who will be the first player shown holding the tribal immunity idol? So last week I had gone Camilla, and Coach ran out in front of her and grabbed it. But it was that tribe, or at least right there.
Yeah.
Not to spoil anything, but I'm going Camilla again. I'm
also going Camilla. Yep.
Right? He's gonna be standing in the front row, and that first challenge, like Coach had to walk by and grab that. I was like, no, Coach, let the little girl in the front do it. Like, let Camilla go grab that. That's Camilla's moment. This tribe is going to win again. And I think that if this one ends with a puzzle, this time it's Camilla grabbing it. So I'm going with Camilla again.
I completely agree with you for the puzzle reason. I saw photos of the challenge in the lead up to the episode, and I think the immunity challenge is one that's out on the water. And if it's not someone from that Callow tribe that takes the immunity idol, I could see a world where Jeff actually gives the idol to the second place tribe first. If it's Sela who wins it, because there's a section of this challenge that features a balance beam. So if Siri makes it over that balance beam, she conquers her fears, and they actually win immunity this week, I think Jeff would look past Jonathan, look past Coach, that entire group, and then walk over to Siri personally and hand her the tribal idol. But I made the safe pick of going with Camilla because I agree with you about the whole puzzle situation. But if it's not her, my backup would be Siri.
All right, here's the deal. Now that I know that there's a balance beam, I got to go back and change all my answers because orange is done. Ceri's done. She can't cross the balance beam. No, I'm not going to go back and change. But yeah, I just feel like right now, the way this is set up, you look at that blue tribe, they have the best puzzle performers. Tiffany and Dee are absolute powerhouses in terms of challenges. They have Jonathan Young, and then they have Coach, who I know he's an older guy, but like, Coach is good at challenges, and he's proving that again on this season. So I feel like they're going to win, and that's why they need to do a swap after this episode. And I know they are, because they called the next episode, "Did you vote for a swap?" And I keep mentioning that, but it's like crazy that they called the episode that and revealed that. So we know a swap is coming, but Kahlo is not losing before that. And so Camilla. Perfect.
Yeah, great pick.
All right, next question. The next one is, who will be the first person? Is that the one? Yeah. Who will be the first person Jeff asks a question at the immunity challenge? So this was one last week that he didn't talk to them at the immunity challenge. He just came right in. And instead of being like, how was your first few days? What's it like to be back? He just started explaining the rules. And I was like, whoa, Jeff, you're supposed to banter with the players. So I'm bringing this back again because I need redemption for myself. And I want this to have an answer. So I'm going to you first. Who's the first person Jeff talks to at the immunity challenge, or asks a question at the immunity challenge?
So I think the important distinction here is that this is the immunity challenge, not the reward challenge. I'm expecting there to be some kind of reward challenge this week. And if assuming that's the case, then at the reward challenge, Jeff is going to ask someone from the Vatu tribe to talk about Kyle. He might go to Joe or Camilla to talk about Kyle, because that'll be the moment where the rest of the cast realizes that Kyle is no longer there. But at this point in the episode, we're further in the future. They have moved past Kyle. They are out on the water. Jeff sees the balance beam, and he goes right to Siri and asks her a question out of the gate. He wants to build up to that moment of Siri overcoming her fears. So I got Siri with this pick.
So you got Siri. So do you think they're doing a reward and immunity, or do you think they're doing an immunity reward package together?
I think it's going to be two separate ones.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I feel like we're probably going to get some journey, and then we'll just have one regular challenge. That's where my mind is at. But
oh man, 3 journeys in 2 episodes? I hope not.
Never count out. Never count out Survivor.
I feel like we're already at the point now where the casual fans are tuning out and forgetting who's holding what advantages and who has their votes and who has lost their votes. Like, production needs to press their foot on the brakes just a little bit to make sure that we can all kind of like equalize and get used to the current layout of the game.
Here's my biggest problem with how they're doing that right now. We have 2 advantages in the game and 2 lost votes. I know that they put it next to the names when they're talking, but at this point, we know these players so well. I'm looking at the player. I'm not looking at their name at the bottom.
Yeah.
Because when Savannah's talking, I'm looking at Savannah to know it's Savannah. So that's where you're putting that she has the steal a vote or the block a vote, whatever it is. Most audience members aren't looking at that. So you're not getting that, oh, that's right, she has this. Like, it's not actually doing it worked back in the day when you were getting used to the players, but now I know the players. So it's not actually having the impact I think they want it to.
Yeah. And one thing I'd be curious to go back and check too is, does it say when Ozzy is on screen, does it say immunity idol or does it say Billie Eilish boomerang idol? Is it a sponsored idol every time Ozzy's on screen? And also, when he pops up and you have that label there, is there any indication that it would go back to Genevieve if he gets voted out? I'm assuming Genevieve doesn't get a shout out with every Ozzy confessional, but I want to know if it's a branded confessional every time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to look for that now actually in this episode because I have no idea. I tune it out. I'm not paying attention. I don't even know it's there. So the person I'm going for with this though, because I do think it's going to be a combined reward immunity. The person who has a connection to both people who have exited the game is Colby. And I think that it's going to be Vatu comes in. There's going to be a lot of shocked reactions over Kyle being gone. They're going to start off where Orange is going to come in, or not Orange, Blue is going to come in. And then it's going to be Blue getting your first look at the new Orange tribe. Jenna voted out. And then you're going to get Purple coming in. You're going to get people going, whoa, what? And Jeff is going to go to Colby. And he's going to say, Colby, like what happened? And Colby's going to explain what happened on his tribe with Kyle because he was close with Kyle. And he's going to have the shock of Jenna going home. No matter how they come in here, Colby's the one with the connection to Jenna. And Colby is the one who has a connection to Kyle. He's the only player there who has a connection with both because he's the only one who played with Jenna Lewis on Survivor All-Stars, even though they were in the same tribe. You know what I mean? So I think that Colby will get the confessional here. And I do think Colby has actually been like a warrior on the mats right now when it comes to speaking. He's really been a good go-to guy for Jeff. So that's my pick for this one.
I think that's a great pick. Yeah, you can kind of check off both boxes, especially in a 90-minute episode where things are a bit more condensed. They might not have the time to reflect on Jenna and reflect on Kyle, so they can kind of use Colby to bridge that gap between the two of them.
Exactly. And Colby would be able to explain what happened to Kyle and all that. And then maybe you go to Joe or you go to Camille. I mean, I can already see Joe with his hands on his knees looking very seriously over like, like he's winded, but really he's just distraught, which by the way, Joe is now going to play Chief Bailey in the Netflix show Where's the Smoke or Bring the Smoke or something like that. So he's now an actor, just in case you were wondering.
Oh, okay. Is he?
Yeah.
I think I did see this. He's playing a firefighter, right?
He is. Yeah.
Okay. So it's perfectly made for Joe.
That's it. Chief Bailey. He's probably going to have like a couple lines every week and good for Joe. I'm happy for Joe. He's a good dude. So he deserves
good for him. I hope they have some moments that are like references back to 50 or 48.
Yeah, we'll see how much they're into that, but it's crazy that here's Joe Hunter, 2 years ago, nobody knew who he was. Now he's on Survivor twice and about to be in a TV show. Crazy how fast things can happen still. All right, next one. Who will have 0 confessionals this week? Not a single confessional in the episode. This means they can talk, but I mean, you know what a confessional is. Everybody knows what a confessional is. Who's going to have none, Clyde? Who are you going with?
So I picked this player last week and I'm sticking with this contestant. I will pick this person as the one to have 0 confessionals every week until they are voted out of the game. It has to be Tiffany. I think Tiffany is like the least integral person on this entire cast. I said this back when we did our player ranking over the summer. I think she's a great character, someone that would be a perfect spot for new era All-Stars, but I don't think she's the ideal contestant to have on Survivor 50. I just don't know if her legacy matches the rest of the cast in terms of like how influential she was over her particular season. So that's why I gave her the 0 vote confessionals. A side note that I want to make with Tiffany, and this is just something that's been on my mind that I wanted to release somewhere. It's so weird to me that for all of these seasons where you have 3 contestants from that season, they are split up across tribes. Mm-hmm. The one exception is Survivor 46, and they decided to put Tiffany and Charlie together. Like, why would you not put Tiffany and Q together on the same tribe to see if they blow up on each other all over again? Like, that felt like the easiest production decision, and they kind of dropped the ball on that front.
I totally agree. I don't get why. I mean, because you're not putting Mike White and Christian on the same tribe, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then what do you call it? Angelina's on her own tribe. So why would you put Tiffany and Charlie together, especially like they made it? I mean, she finishes 8th place. Like she makes it far enough into the merge. They played the game together. I'm also going with Tiffany here. Look, coming to episode 1, you're looking at that story. What's going to be the story? R-I-Z-G-O-D, Riz God Baby is here. What a collab. So when you're looking at the story, you're saying to yourself, okay, you know who your big players are going to be, but are there going to be any that are surprisingly quiet, such as Siri, such as Aubrey for me too? I thought Siri and Aubrey were both kind of shockingly quiet. Genevieve, I thought, was shockingly loud, getting 7 confessionals with nobody from her original season there. I was surprised at that. Then you go to the Kahlo tribe. Charlie barely spoke. Chrissy barely spoke. Dee barely spoke. Camilla barely spoke. And Tiffany barely spoke. And the there was 2 people with 1 confessional. It was Dee and Tiffany. To me, if Tiffany was going to be a huge player on this season, if Tiffany was going to potentially win or make a deep run or be integral to the story, they would be explaining why Tiffany is on Survivor 50 in this first episode. Because she's the one that most people are going to forget or be like, wait, she's legend? What's going on? And they didn't do that. And I still think Tiffany could go far in this game. But after watching that episode, I go, no, like she's not going to be integral enough. And Kahlo's going to win. So Kahlo's not going to go. So unless she goes on a journey, Tiffany is going to end up getting shut out here for Dee or Camilla, who's going to get the confessional that Tiffany would otherwise get.
Yeah.
And Chris Mack Talk says, I think everyone will get at least 1 confessional each episode. Look, there was a lot of things last week that nobody got because it wasn't possible. So there could be somebody getting a confessional every episode, but with 22 people in an hour and a half, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I think this episode will be the real tell, especially for all like the Survivor Edgic fans. This will be the one that gives us a lot more information as compared to the premiere. Because if you have 3 hours, you can give everyone at least some moment in the spotlight, even if it's, Chrissy targeting Dee instead of Chrissy talking about forced fire making.
Yeah, agreed. So, all right. So let's move off then to who will go on a journey. And this was the one where you just said, I hope not. Let's say they do. Let's say they're having it. Who are you picking?
Yeah. So for this question, I had to look at the board and think, okay, who's already been on journeys? Who's already went on like the Sweat versus Savvy-esque challenge? I'll take them all off because there's no way someone volunteers to do it twice. The person I ended up going with here is Rick Devens. I think Devens is the type of person that will be willing to put himself forward. The whole reason why Christian aligned with him in the first place is because Devens is the guy that will make moves for the alliance, and Christian is the puppeteer in the background calling all the shots. I also think that Devens enjoys like being out in front. When Jeff brings them all out to the beach and he talks to Devens for a little bit, like he's a little bit cheeky. He stands forward and says, I will not be searching for any idols or advantages. Fast forward 20 minutes. He's talking to Christian and searching for idols and advantages. So I just think it's in this guy's DNA. If you give him an opportunity to go on a journey, he's going to do whatever he can to go on it. So I feel good about the Devens pick.
I like the Devens pick here. I'm going a different route. I'm going with somebody who I think complained a little bit about their game being stunted in this first episode. And that person for me is Chrissy. Chrissy was complaining. She wants to be playing and she said, I just have to sit here. I have to wait, whatever. If she's not feeling good about her position in the tribe and like she wants to play, she's going to go on this journey. She's going to volunteer to go on this journey. Now, maybe there's not a journey in this episode, so maybe this is all for naught, but I feel like Chrissy wants to be playing the game. And I feel like Chrissy, out of all the players who are back on this season, she might have the biggest hunger, being that the last time she played, she finished second. A lot of the internet felt that she was robbed because of the Final Four fire making and all of that. And it's just been a constant conversation of what could Chrissy do? Could Chrissy have won? Is she better than Ben? Whatever. In that first episode, she didn't get to do anything. And I think that bothers her. So for me, I think she's going to want to take the reins. And if she has the ability, it's kind of been an all boys club here. 5 of the 6 people to go on a journey or this, fight for supplies have been men. I think Chrissy's going to say, hey, let's let me play. And I think that the guys on that tribe, considering Mike White ultimately didn't get to do anything, I do think that like Jonathan doesn't really have an interest in going. Coach has already done something, and I don't think Charlie wants to. So I think Chrissy will have this if there is a journey.
Yeah, and I think Camilla and Dee might have the same philosophy as Charlie, where they just see going on the journey as something that paints a target on their backs. I don't think either did Dee or Camilla ever go on a journey on their seasons. I don't remember them going and earning anything, but I need to go back and check on that. I will say a sneaky pick from the Callow tribe, and this might be a little bit crazy, is Mike White part 2.
Yeah.
If Mike genuinely convinced his tribe that he went there, did not get to do anything, and immediately came back, maybe they do let him go again. It seems like everyone enjoys hanging out with Mike. They're making fun of him and poking at the fact that he now has a 6-pack for some reason. I guess if you reach like a certain level of wealth, you just have a personal trainer roll up at your front door. So I could see a world where Mike somehow convinces the rest of the tribe to send him back on the journey, which would be a lot of fun.
That would be great. I think it just would come down to if they let him, like if there's a rule that, oh, you've already done one. And when you're asking, did Dee or Camilla go on any? That's how pointless the journeys are. I don't remember. I remember it all.
I don't think they did. I know Kyle had the idol that he used in the pre-merge of 48, but that wasn't one that he got on a journey, and I don't think Camilla had any connection to it. So I think they're journey-less as far as I know right now.
All right, so this next one, and maybe based on what you're saying with the preview here, this might be one that everybody's going to get, or maybe there's only 2 people who don't get it. Who will be shown in water for any reason, but rain doesn't count? So I mean in the water. I mean in a boat in water. I mean in the water. Who's going to be swimming, taking an aqua dump, sitting in the water while somebody else? That doesn't mean getting their feet in. Like, they have to be in the water. Maybe based on what you're saying, the immunity challenge is going to feature pretty much everybody in water. But hey, who knows? Maybe there'll be a puzzle where they don't all have to do it. But who you going with?
I got to go with Ozzy here. I don't think we got the Ozzy fishing segment in the premiere of 50, but the clock is ticking. It's only a matter of time until we get the drone shot going over the ocean as Ozzy is flapping around in the water. We run through this every season. We get the background music that's very motivational. We get the Ozzy narration saying, one of the ways that I contribute to this game is by feeding the rest of my tribe and making them feel included. Maybe this season will be the one where he says, yes, I provide, but that's not the central component of my game. So I think most of the people are going to be swimming this episode because of the immunity challenge, but I want to get the extra bonus point. I think there's a good chance that we get a segment of Ozzy fishing back at camp, just because that's so like classic Survivor. It's just a matter of time until we get it.
I love that pick, and I'm not going to go with the same one as you because it's so right. But at the same time, I want to mix it up. You know, I'm playing to win, but I also think this one's a good one. I'm going with Jonathan.
Okay.
I think every time Jonathan can get in the water, he's going to try to do it. If there's a physical portion of the challenge, he's always going to be on it. He's never doing puzzles. You know, I feel like he's always going to be in the water. And you're not going to get maybe a fishing segment from Jonathan, but I feel like with how that tribe is set up, if the challenge has water, Jonathan is in the water. So I'm going with Jonathan, although Ozzy is the better pick. I'm just taking a little bit of a riskier pick, but I still think it's going to be one that works out.
Yeah, it's a riskier pick, but I'd be shocked if they both don't hit. I think there's a good chance that we both get the point on that front.
It would be funny if the first thing we see in this episode is like they're coming back from tribal and it's just Ozzy out in the water. Like, you know, I know they're not coming back from tribal because Kyle already went home, but she's like, oh, we're starting the episode. There's Ozzy out in the water.
I will say, when it comes to Ozzy, like there were so many contestants going into the season where they kept saying, I'm going to change the way I play. I'm going to change who I am. Ozzy's the one person, at least through the premiere, who I feel like is actually changing his approach with the game. Yeah. Coach claims that it's Coach 4.0. I don't think he's all that different from the Token Jeans version of him. Ozzy might actually have like a strategic bone in his body now. And even if he doesn't, he's at least aware of his weaknesses in the game. It's not the same arrogant version of Ozzy that we've seen in the past. He's very loyal to Siri because he recognizes that she can balance out a lot of those weaknesses. So this is like the most optimistic I felt on Ozzy's like social and strategic gameplay that I felt like since his first time on the show back in 2006.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I thought Ozzy had a great first episode. I'm not a big Ozzy fan. I was like, I don't need Ozzy back. I've seen every version of Ozzy, but maybe I haven't, because Ozzy episode 1 he was the star of the show. I mean, he was great.
Yeah,
so.
I agree with you. I think we would have been good if we went from like the South Pacific version of Ozzy, skipped Game Changers, and then had him come back on 50. I think then it would have felt like a smoother transition between the two.
Insane that Ozzy had 8 confessionals on Game Changers and 19 on this in episode 1 of this season.
It was 8 total on Game Changers,
and then he had 19. He had the fewest confessionals per episode on that season, like fewer than Haley Ford.
That's crazy. What are they doing with the Game Changers edit if they're giving Haley Ford more content than Ozzy?
Because Ozzy just didn't bring anything, and that's why I couldn't believe they were bringing him back.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
So, all right, let's move on. Who will be the first person Jeff asks a question at Tribal Council? Now, I told y'all I'm hedging my bets. I have Rizzo casting the deciding vote, but I have Rick Devens being the first person that is asked a question by Jeff at Tribal Council. I feel like if Sela goes, Rick's a great guy to go to. Rick, you're back here again. What are you doing here? What happened? You guys didn't figure out, Jeff, I feel like Christian always gets the button at the end because he gets to give the analogy. And Rick is the guy you go to first because it's like, can't believe you're here again. It's like, Jeff, me too. So I am going to go with Rick Devens on this one, even though I'm so 50-50 on Vatu or Sela losing. So I'll just go with Rick.
I think that's a great pick. I can totally see Jeff like looking over at Rick and saying something like, Rick, this is an anxious environment. Someone's going home here. You are very familiar with having your name written down at a tribal council, like bringing up the fact that he's used so many idols in his career. I could totally see Rick being the first person if Sela goes, but I'm sticking with my Vatu theory. I've been all in on this tribe the entire time and I'm staying with it. So I'm going to go with Colby. I think Colby just feels like the old school representative of that tribe, someone that Jeff could look to and say, like, Colby, it's been, 15, 16 years since you participated in a tribal council and lit that torch here. How does it feel to have your torch alive once again on Survivor? And then Colby can take it from there. And out of the other people on that tribe, there doesn't seem to be a lot of like big names that would open the tribal council. Maybe they would go with Rizzo just to continue that transition for the new school viewers, but I think Colby feels like the safer bet.
I also feel like Steph could potentially do it just because it's like she gives the big reactions. She always is looking around and it's Jeff, wow, Jeff, this is crazy. I haven't been here in forever. I could see Steph, the last time I was here, it wasn't good, Jeff. Like I think she would give that a little bit. I do think Colby's a good pick though. And again, that's why I went with Colby for first question at the immunity challenge. I think that he's a go-to guy for Jeff. Jeff just likes going to Colby. So I could see
Steph got the first confessional of the season, right?
Yeah.
That was a shocker. I picked Jenna for first confessional and I was close because there's that segment after the opening montage where Jenna's eyes are closed on the plane. She opens them up and she's on the boat. And I thought it was going to transition perfectly to a Jenna confessional, but instead we go to Steph for some reason.
Well, and what's crazy is Stephanie had the first confessional and then nobody else got a confessional until after the first challenge. It was that long. Like Stephanie gets a confessional. People are talking, but it's not it's more of a voiceover than a confessional until after the first challenge.
That's crazy. I did not notice that. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to rewatch it to make sure I'm right there, but that was something that stood out to me for sure. Cause I was like, wow, Stephanie, good for her. And then I'm like waiting for somebody else to talk and it never came. There we are.
Still waiting.
Yeah. All right. Number 9. This is not the freebie yet, but the freebie is coming, everybody. So who will have their mouth blurred? So simple. Who's cursing and getting their mouth blurred?
Because there's people who I know are like cursors on this cast, people who are going to let it fly either during the challenge or back at camp. Since I'm rolling with this theory that Pink is going to tribal council, I want to pick someone from that tribe because they're just guaranteed to get the most screen time. I'm going to go with Angelina. I think Angelina was someone who was so surprising in the premiere because she was so quiet in that episode, especially after seeing all of the media leaking stuff after that first episode. Like she asked Jeff to exchange some supplies after the immunity challenge. Like there was content to be used from that premiere from Angelina and they just didn't take advantage of it. So I'm hoping that production corrects their mistake. They give Angelina more content here. And then when she has that realization that she's on the bottom and she's working with Aubrey and Rizzo to flip the game, she says something that gets her mouth blurred. So she's my pick.
I like that pick. I'm going with Savannah.
Okay.
Just because Savannah, I agree with you that if Sela goes, she's the one in trouble. And so I could see her getting really defensive. And then, somebody says something and she's confrontational. She does it. So I'm going to go with Savannah here as my mouth blurred. But I do feel like Angelina's a good pick. I also feel like people in the chat are saying Coach is yelling at Ozzy at the challenge. As we saw in the preview, Coach is pissed. So maybe we're going to see stuff like that. Angelina just had so little in that first episode and just being how big of a personality she is, how big of a character, and how everybody absolutely loves her. I'm surprised that it was so small. So I'm just worried for her edit as a whole coming into this episode.
But your final pick, Savannah there, right?
Savannah. Yeah, I'm going
Okay. I think Savannah is a good pick. I think she's someone who could get that mouth blurred, whether it's in like the lead up to tribal, or she's someone that really values the physical side of the game. She's a challenge competitor. Maybe if something goes wrong during the challenge, she'll curse there too. So you could have your bases covered with Savannah in either scenario.
Yeah. No, I like that. So that's why I'm going with Savannah. All right, the last one. Here it is. This is the gimme. If you watch the preview, here it is. So like the video before you get to this, because we're about to give you free points. So like the video. Who will cry a physical tear in this episode? We got to see a tear. It's like Ozzy. You know, he had the tear streaming down his face. Who will cry in this episode? They show it in like a sneak peek of the episode. So if you've watched it and you're listening this far in, congrats, you get a point. This is your advantage for listening to the specialist. You listen every Tuesday. Maybe you'll get a free one every now and then. I didn't know this was going to be a free one. I just watched the sneak peek today. But I'd already written the questions, so I'm not going to go back and change them because people have already put their answers in. Genevieve, right? Has to.
Of course. Yeah. We actually see her reacting to the Kyle medevac, and that's where the tears come from. But I didn't want to just, like, I'm still going to lock in Genevieve on the site so I can get the free point. But I told you before the recording that I want to go a step further. I can tell you who the second person will be to cry in the episode. And for that, I'm going to go with Joe. I think once they meet up at the reward challenge and Jeff reveals the fact that Kyle was pulled from the game, you have the two 48ers. On one side, you have Camilla, whose reputation is based in this idea that she is a cutthroat person. She wants to run people over with a bus. She doesn't seem like the type of person who would cry in that scenario. I think there's a world where Camilla actually goes into confessional and says that the Kyle medevac might actually be good for her game because it lowers her threat level amidst the rest of the cast. Joe, on the other hand, it's going to be all waterworks. He's a firefighter. He's going to be, letting it go the entire time. And I agree with what you said earlier. He'll be leaning over, taking a moment for himself. So Genevieve will be the first crier, but Joe will be the second, in my opinion.
I love that pick. I think that's a great pick. And honestly, I can't even come up with somebody that I think is a better choice for the second person crying, because I agree. Camilla's not crying. She's not going to do it. She didn't cry on the other season, but Joe cries. Joe's a crier. And I think that we will probably see Joe cry. You're right. That's a good call. And I think about on this cast, who are the other criers? Like maybe Christian, but Christian already got his human moment. Maybe Aubrey, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if Aubrey was built up enough that she's going to be crying in episode 2. So I love the Joe pick, but Genevieve is a lock. If you're playing this game, Genevieve is it. Like, just put Genevieve and you get a point, and we're giving you a freebie. But if you don't listen to our podcast, that's your problem. That's what happens.
Yeah. Maybe it could be Q too. I don't think we saw Q cry on 46, but it seems like he was close with Kyle on that tribe before he got pulled. He went back to camp and told Kyle that he lost his vote, and I don't think he shared that information with anybody else.
Be interesting if Kyle shared it with anybody else, because it seemed like Kyle and Genevieve were really, really close out there. So I wonder if he shared that with Genevieve, and Genevieve just never said anything to Q, or what's up with that. So what else are you thinking for this episode? Who's your prediction of who's going to go? I know you've talked, I think, did you say Q is who you're going?
Yeah, Q's my pick. I think that majority alliance with all the lost votes starts to crumble. They realize that the game is closing in on them. And once they realize that it's going to be one of us who needs to go, they're going to vote out the outsider. And I think that outsider is going to be Q. It'll either be Q or Genevieve, but I just have way more confidence in Genevieve sucking up to Colby and Stephanie and convincing the two of them to keep her around.
Yeah, and I think Genevieve fits better with Colby and Stephanie's style. They like to play with predictable. Yeah, they have for the most part in their career, so that makes sense. Zach says that Kyle said the whole alliance knew about it by the end of the day in his exit press. So Q's vote is known only by the alliance, though, so not by Aubrey and Angelina.
Okay, and who'd you say your pick was for the boot this week?
I have Angelina.
Okay,
I think she goes super invisible first episode. Didn't feel like she bonded with anybody. They leave out her big moment. That could have been her big moment in a 3-hour premiere. Maybe they're worried that she's starting to play a character or something like that. But then again, you brought her back. Of course, we want that. Like, that's what the fans are here for. But I could see her going home just because who did she bond with? And Aubrey's better in challenges than Angelina. So I would think Angelina. But if Orange loses, I think that it is Savannah. And if Teal loses, I actually think it's Camilla, because you have Chrissy who can do puzzles. And Camilla, I think, is a little bit more threatening to people.
That makes sense. It seems like we're both kind of following a similar train of thought in that in this early section of the game, and we saw it last week too, these tribes are just voting out the chaotic people who they feel like they cannot trust under any circumstance. I think that's a large reason why Jenna went home. And I think Hugh and Angelina could both fall into that archetype as well.
Yeah.
So at this stage of the game, it's not necessarily about knocking out the big threats. That way you're the biggest jury threat later in the game. It's just, who do I not trust at all? And if you're in that category, we need to get rid of you now. So I think those are both really good picks.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense because you don't want your game to get blown up by people who are wild cards. Yeah. You want to play with people who know how to play. So I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, before we wrap this up, what do you have going on during the season?
So we cover an episode every single week. We do a recap that comes out on Sundays. This week, we're meeting up with Shaheen to recap episode 2, which would be a really fun time. At the end of the season, I do like a player ranking in terms of how the cast performed. And then over on TikTok and also YouTube Shorts, I release a ton of short form content after every single episode. So if you're someone that struggles to really understand the strategic board of the game, I talk about it and put graphics behind me that clearly lay out, this is who's aligned with who. These are the idols in the game. These are the advantages, and these are the lost votes. So I feel like the whole idea with our page from the beginning was I'm the super fan and my co-host Jack has only seen the seasons that we've covered on the podcast. So when I'm making content, I want it to be engaging to super fans, but also approachable to people who, haven't seen 49 seasons of the show. So you can check us out on all those different platforms. Should be a lot of fun stuff in the season to come.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed your TikTok stuff so far this season. It's been good. So it's
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. It's fun. So if you're looking for TikTok content, guys, we're not putting it out. So go follow Survivor Analytics. That's why we get Survivor Analytics and Tegwith on here, because they actually know how to get TikTok content that hits. So
well, you guys are on that app.
I think we'll just keep doing our 2-hour-long podcast though. We're better at that. We're better at
that's fair.
Than short. I speak and write in complete paragraphs. So, if I'm sending you a text message and it's 14 sentences long, that's just how I talk. It's not my fault. Well, this was a lot of fun. I hope this is the second episode I've done of these. I hope everybody's enjoying these as much as I am. I think this is a fun format. It's quick. It gets you talking about a lot of the players in different ways. Again, it's meant to avoid spoilers because obviously on this season, there's going to be so many people who are spoiled or whatever. So I enjoyed this. This was fun, and I'm really enjoying the way that this prop bet is working as compared to previous seasons where we would do it before the season and never talk about it again. So here we are. So make sure you get your answers in. Real TV Fantasy, link in the description. Make sure you get your answers in before Wednesday night's episode. If you don't, you're probably only going to fall behind by like 2 more questions or something like that because nobody can get points in this yet. But by the time we get down to like final 7 or final 8, I think it's going to be pretty easy for some of these questions. I'll have to come up with something better because all the answers have to be players. But anyway, that's it. Clyde, always a pleasure. This was a great podcast. I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us. And so tomorrow, it's an 1.5 hour episode from what I understand. We'll be live with our recap at 9:30 p.m. On Thursday, Blake and I will be live with Carl Boudreaux from season 37, following up Davey with Carl from Dave vs. Goliath. That'll be at 7:30. And then on Friday, McKenna and John doing Survivor Rewind. And this Sunday, I have Sophie Bellardi. She was supposed to be last Sunday. We moved her to this Sunday. So that's my lineup for this week. If you haven't checked out Tegwith's podcast with Abby Maria, that was the exact kind of chaotic content you wanted. It was so much fun. Abby Maria is great. So go check that one out for sure. But yeah, a lot of stuff coming up for us. So become a patron, patreon.com/thespecialist if you haven't had enough. And Australian Survivor, McKenna and I will recap our episode tomorrow. Probably won't be live, probably be pre-recorded, but it'll be there at some point. That's it. That was a long-winded ending there. Sorry, Clyde, you have to sit there and listen through all of that.
No, it's totally fine. Hey, this is cool for me. I feel like I'm geeking out just being on here. I started making content, I want to say like 2-3 years back at this point. And before I started, I was watching The Specialist. So just for me, being on the other side of it is absolutely insane. So I had a great time talking with you.
Well, it was great having you on, and everybody else, like this video, subscribe to the channel, go check out Survivor Analytics on TikTok, on YouTube, all those fun places. And I'll see you tomorrow night after the episode.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks again.